Wow, this great music get me going. Hey, welcome to my channel, Home Savvy Central and Mike Moves. This is being recorded for a live. Usually I record in the afternoon, but this is in the morning. So welcome to my channel. I'm Mike Patel in Anaheim Hills, California. We have a topic that has not been discussed at all when I visit other channels, friends' channels. And this is a very important topic right now. It's going to be even more important as we go along. And the topic is about scams, and two kinds of scams we're going to talk about. One is a scam of what's happening where when you're transferring money for your buyer's deposit, or when the seller's getting paid through escrow or through attorneys or through title companies, their emails are being intercepted and the money is taken away from them. So that's one scam I want to talk about, very important. The second scam is I'm going to talk about is my fellow realtors. It's not a topic I want to talk about, but there's a lot of realtors taking advantage of buyers and sellers as far as commissions, the new Department of Justice laws, the referral programs and kickbacks. So let's talk about this. To make this program more interesting, I have Alex today, Alex Brandau from all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, which I'm going to in April of 2025. So I'm going to bring on Alex. There you go. Alex, can you see me? And I can see you.
Hello. Yeah.
Hey, Alex. Hey, everybody. This is Alex from KW Luxury in Nashville. He's been in business for a long time. He's a lead at the Keller Williams over there. So, Alex, why don't you take a few minutes, introduce yourself before I say something not right about you?
The good time to practice our elevator pitch, right?
Exactly, right, yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Mike. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm excited for our conversation. Yeah, my name's Alex Brandau, and I'm your friend in real estate in Nashville. I have been in the business 23 years, 1,100 families served, over $500 million in volume. And yet what really drives us today is education and relationships, and being able to be education-based and influential to help our clients reach their goals. And some of the conversation we're going to have today is going to be sharing the things that we've been doing with our clients and have done with our clients, and the things that they don't even know that they should be asking. And so it's going to be a good conversation. I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. This is about education. We're giving you information. We're giving you some knowledge. Hopefully you can use it. And I'm really excited about today is because nobody talks about it. Everybody today is talking about 2025 market prediction, Trump's impact on housing, mortgage rates, which are important, but there's so many conversations out there and you don't know who's saying the right thing and the wrong thing, because some people say it to gain viewers, some people just say it, but nobody's talking about the frauds that's happening as we speak. It started happening 3, 4, 5 years ago with the escrow companies. And Alex, we can talk about it. But before we talk about that, I want to read a report from National Association of Realtors, because I want to make sure that what we say here is not our opinion. We're not giving our opinions. Yes, we might on a certain things, but in the big picture, these are real stats, real articles, real news, real information that you, if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, or if you're an investor, you need to know, because this is happening. It's happening more, and it's people don't talk about it because they are not very comfortable about it. They don't want to scare the buyers and consumers, but I think they need to know all that. So, and I know we were talking earlier, Alex, and you have an actual thing happening right now. So we'll talk about that in real time, what's happening.
For sure.
So let me read this report to start with.
Please.
And this is from can you see the report, by the way?
Yep.
Okay, let me just see if I can read it right. Excuse me. Consumer, and this is from the National Association of Realtors, where Alex and I, both members of NAR for a long time. Consumers, agents aren't warning us enough about scams. Amid the rapid rise in real estate fraud, a new report reveals what consumers expect from their agents when it comes to protection. Going further, it says here that home buyers and sellers say that they're not getting enough warning about the risk of wire fraud and other scams targeting real estate transactions. And they want agents to educate them more about protection according to Certify ID's newly released 2024 State of the Wire study. I won't get into that, but I just want to read one more sentence here. It says that 60% of consumers say they received little to no education about real estate fraud from their agent title agency, or attorney, we use escrow over here, by the way, according to the survey, based on response from 650 consumers who recently bought or sold a home. So that's not good news. Um, People have to be educated. And if I can get your opinion, why do you feel the consumers are not educated, or why don't escrow companies, attorneys, or you or me or realtors don't tell them that? Is there a reason for that, or what's the hesitance there?
I think it's twofold. I think we got to, first of all, point the finger back at ourselves, right? That
Right.
we're not telling consumers that those are questions they should be asking. I'm very excited that I just won a very robust interview process with a client here in town. Two very, very educated and very professional people. And they interviewed 10 agents. And I don't know about you, Mike, but that's pretty rare in our world.
That's very, I've never heard of it. That's too rare. Usually
10.
2 or 3. Usually 2 or 3.
Maybe
maybe.
of that many.
Yeah.
And in the process, we went through with them. I was guiding them through that. And I said, the questions, they had a ton of questions. They're both very detailed, highly educated people. And I said, the question you really should be asking is, how many people have you helped get out of trouble lately? How many, everyone has this great view of this is going to be perfect and we're going to be best friends with the people that we buy this house from. And there's going to be no bumps in the road and no process. And really, the best guide, and consumers independently when things do go wrong are saying they want us to guide them. So I think first and foremost, the professionals need to do a better job explaining some of the pitfalls that happen.
Right.
We take the order too much, right? I use language in my business. We need to be less drive-through and more table service, as a restaurant,
Yep.
If you're a server and your tip depends on your people having good experience. If they order the worst thing on the menu, you're going to tell them. And you're like, hey, have you had that? Like, it's not the best. And but you had it. It's good. Okay, cool. Then. But the same thing here is we need to do a better job as professionals, and consumers need to do a better job, understanding what the agent is really going to do and how they're going to really protect you, because ultimately often they make a choice and it's too late, and they're in business with someone that they have to stay in business with that may not be skilled or equipped or experienced to handle the new thing that they've come into. So
right. Okay. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, they have to be educated. So let's start with what we're talking about, because some of the consumers watching, buyers, sellers, may not understand what we're talking about. Two things we're going to talk about today. Number one is the wire fraud scam, which we'll talk briefly, but the other broader is the commission scams from realtors to their clients, which is absolutely berserk. But I came to find out about it, did some research, did some videos, and I want to talk about it. So about 5 years ago, we were having an office meeting in my office. I'm in Anaheim Hills, California, by the way. And, in the office meetings like you, Alex, the escrow people come in, the title people come in. So this escrow lady came in and said, I'm very upset today. And we never knew this happened. She said, guess what happened today? There was a wire fraud scam from a Gmail email. So what happened was an escrow sent an email to the buyers to wire $500,000 or something like that. It was over $500,000. I'm just using that example because I'm not sure exact number.
Sure.
It was well over $500,000. Because it was sent through Gmail, and at that time there was no secure email. Now emails, the escrow and all title have secure emails. Back then they did not have that. They didn't know this was happening. So they got the receipt, they got the routing number, blah, blah, blah. So apparently somebody in Nigeria intercepted that email, changed the routing number by 1 or 2 numbers. Everything is exactly the same. Just change the routing number and send it to the actual buyer. So when the buyer received it, oh yeah, I'm excited. I'm closing escrow tomorrow. I goes to the bank, wires it, and guess what? Escrow never receives the money. Money is gone. They could never find it. At that time, now escrow company has fraudulent insurance. So make sure if you use escrow or attorney, they have insurance. At that time, they did not have insurance because this was new. I'm talking 5 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe 6 years ago. Guess what? The buyer lost $500,000. He sued the title company, the escrow company, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what happened, but this is what we're talking about, wire fraud. So just to give you an example, when I open up an escrow and when the buyer says, Mike, I'm going to send my 3% earnest money deposit, the first thing I do is I tell them, even before we open escrow, that when we open escrow, escrow will send you a secure email showing you the routing numbers and everything. When you go to the bank, before you wire anything, call me that you're wiring, so I know that you're wiring. But after that, call escrow company, and escrow company wants that. Call them, verify the routing number by voice, then wire it. So that's the precaution we're taking right now. Hopefully things will improve. But this is a big fraud going on. I mean, millions and millions of people have lost, no, not millions, hundreds of people have lost millions of dollars. And this is a growing trend from China, from Nigeria, from Ukraine, from Czechoslovakia, from USA. It's happening in a big way. And I know, Alex, you mentioned something happened in your transaction or somebody in your office. Do you want to give an example so they know what's going on out there and they're more educated? Because that's big money. That's a life saving gone.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, us as professionals, we've got to elevate our clients and tell them, hey, listen, as an agent, I'll never send you wiring instructions, right? And you got to make it part of your process to help and tell them. Then they say, why does that matter? You can send me wiring instructions. It's no big deal, but it actually is. Agents are being pulled into this scam as well, that some of the scammers will sit and watch our emails and wait for things to close.
Yep.
And it may be something you clicked on about, you didn't even realize that you had someone sitting in the shadows watching you, and they'll send an email either from you or from an account that's very similar. And then we're looped into it too. And so we make it part of our process to tell people, hey, we will never do that. And you need to make sure that you verify all of your wires in voice. We've had two scenarios. One's active right now today in November of 24. And then we've seen another interesting one. If it's all right, I'll share both.
Sure.
The first one that we saw that's a scam is people very quickly and being very, very kind and collaborative and wanting to go under contract quite quickly, but they'll use an international bank as for their earnest money. And so this scam is ahead of closing. And what happens is we had one go through where these people never saw the property, never actually toured it. They saw it. They liked it. They were making an offer with an agent. And the agent didn't even know. They sent their funds for the earnest money was from the bank RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. And those funds take longer to transfer and for them to actually come through. Well, what happens is the scam is they go ahead, they cash those funds. It goes into a very large escrow account. And it's targeted for them to go through, and then they withdraw quite quickly. Just as soon as they go under contract, they withdraw quite quickly. They do an inspection. At least in Tennessee, it's a pretty buyer favorable inspection period. And as long as you do your inspection, you can withdraw. And so what they're actually doing is they're kiting the money, right? The money never cleared out of RBC, and then actual different funds get sent back out, and they go to a different account. And then they've gotten money that was never theirs to begin with.
So when you say withdraw, how can they withdraw without canceling escrow? Just kind of highlight that.
Yeah. So
if I have an escrow, I cannot just withdraw, right? I have to cancel escrow and have signatures, blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
So that's what you're talking about. They're canceling the escrow.
Yeah. So they're joining and doing an agreement. So just what buyers and sellers need to be mindful of, specifically sellers in this moment, is you and your agent need to be looking, going, has this person seen the property? How long were they there? There's a lot of people, business is moving very, very fast now. And all of a sudden, has this person toured to the property? So sellers need to be mindful of, hey, did they even show up? Which showing was this? How long was their showing? Were they even there? Because what happens is often, it'll be someone, hey, I'm working with someone from far away. Did the agent show it even? Maybe it was a virtual showing, but look to see that there's some tie into this. But it's a misdirection scam they look like they're intending to buy, and then they withdraw quite quickly. They're very collaborative initially, and then as soon as they have a moment to withdraw from the contract per the existing terms, or either from escrow, withdraw from escrow, or using one of the other contingencies, that's what they do. And because it'll take 10 days to 2 weeks for the international funds to clear, that's the difference between the international banks as opposed.
So basically, they're starting with the fraudulent fund from international. They're coming into the U.S. bank or escrow, and then before that happens, they're withdrawing money. So they're getting number one, they're pulling money out of another country to US, and it's not even their money.
Yes, it's
Wow.
actually not money. It's not actual anyway. It ultimately ends up being fraudulent. Period. It's a fake check. It's fake certified funds.
Okay.
It actually clears enough locally within the U.S., but then actually when it goes to clear and it goes through all
Right.
of the
Okay.
world bank.
So the money is deposited in the let's say if I'm an escrow, the money is there in my account. So the money is there because I'm not stupid escrow company to withdraw something that's not even deposited. I'm going to wait.
That's
But
right.
you're talking about this not cleared from the international bank, so the wire doesn't come into the bank or to the escrow company,
You got it.
even though it shows that it's there.
Right. So they'll do certified funds or a
Right.
check or a physical check, which takes longer to clear as opposed to
Right.
electronic funds. You bring up a great point there, Mike. Like if they say, hey, go ahead and send the wire, well, then that is much more secure. So
Right.
we're just leaving some breadcrumbs, kind of a checklist for your viewers to be like, hey, how real is this?
Right.
And
Right.
hopefully they're working with you or with me and we're doing that together. But if they're not, cite this checklist of like, did they see it? Did they show it? Did they they did a physical check? Very few people do physical checks anymore, but it's possible.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, while we're talking about this fraud, now that we know about it, guess what? They got two new ones brewing that we don't know about.
That's right.
They're ahead of the game.
That's right.
So, yeah. Cool. What was the other one that you were talking about that
Yeah.
you encountered?
So we're in the middle of one right now, and we don't know the end of the story. So to be continued. We'll have to do, Alex and Mike Part 2. But at the moment, we got a referral from an agent in Las Vegas. And we got a referral for a buyer who is going to buy a very, very, very large property, over $10 million. And they're working, but because they've been referred through, there's a trust, right? That's become through an agent. And we've actually had to do some due diligence with this one. We think it's a very similar scam that they're setting us up. They're engaging. They're building a long process where they're waiting to get funds. They're getting an inheritance, a very large inheritance. And as soon as they get the inheritance, they're going to buy this other property. And we are just know through our experience over 23 years, we know there's going to be a scam here, right? Something where they're going to say, hey, could you send me a gift card? Or, hey, could you send me this? There's going to be something where they're going to ask us for funds, us to engage, us to give financial information. And, we actually have channels that we have been prepared to do some initial due diligence. Our membership with the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing allows us to do some background searches. We also engaged our escrow attorney to do and have some resources. And we've engaged these folks to know that it's very unlikely that this person is being completely truthful. We're waiting for that other shoe to drop, but we're actively in it, and they are responding. It's a real person. It's not a bot. We asked them to send and prove who they were. They sent a real driver's license with a real driver's license number and all the things, but we know that it's very unlikely that they're going to do this because their driver's license is suspended, and so they're starting to put things together, but you really have to be mindful of those scams.
Yeah, there's a lot of them going. This is the 2 or 3 that we've encountered, but I'm sure there's others.
So many.
And this, by the way, for you watching, and thanks for watching. And also, by the way, if you watching this, and of course this is a recording, if you come across something or if you heard something, please comment below. Let us know so that when we know, we can alert other people, because there's new scams out there. So if you heard something or if you read something about it, please share and with everybody, not only us as me and Alex, but also other viewers watching. And we can provide this because somehow we have to do something about it, and every little thing helps. So please comment. I'd appreciate it. So the other thing I want to talk about, the other scam is, and I hate to talk about this, Alex, but it's something that happens. I've seen it. I just happened to see 2 of these a couple of months ago, and that's why I did the video.
Yeah.
Of our fellow realtors are scamming their buyers or sellers, mostly sellers, because sellers are in control of the commission. So when they do a listing agreement, the rules have changed starting August 2024, as you know. And let me show an article just so that if I know that by now most consumers know what happened, but for the few that may not have heard about it or want some clarification, I just want to share something very quickly. Let me go and share the screen again one more time. Stop screen. Just give me 1 minute. Share screen. This gets so technical every day. I wish somebody can take care of this. Okay, you can see this, right? So I just want to, for most of them know this, but as of August 2024, there was new rules put in place where the sellers cannot pay commission directly to the buyer's agent. So if you look at the lawsuit settlement, Department of Justice claims the NAR settlement requirement of buyer-broker agreements may stifle broker compensation of home buyers. Let me see here. I'm going to read this paragraph. You can read here. The way in which Department of Justice suggests rectifying the perceived issue are to eliminate the buyer-broker agreement requirements or to disclaim that the settlement creates any immunity or defense under the antitrust law. Additionally, the Department of Justice writes that the court could clarify that approval of the settlement affords no immunity or defense for the buyer's agreement provisions. They're getting very complicated here, but the bottom line is sellers can no longer pay the buyer's agent commission or no longer advertise. They can still pay, but they cannot advertise it. And when the buyer wants to see a house, the new regulation, I know it's in California, but it's nationwide, is that the buyer has to sign a buyer broker agreement with the buyer's agent, whether it's for 1 day or 1 week. And the buyer has to agree with the buyer's agent how much commission the buyer is going to pay to the buyer's agent. And I said that correctly, how much the buyer is going to pay the buyer's agent commission. But it's been August, September, October, November. Talking to escrow again, she was in our office last week. She's saying that even though the buyer has to pay the commissions, so far 90% or more of all escrow that have closed, what the buyer's agents are doing is they're not charging their buyers the commission, they're charging the seller. So when they write an offer for the home purchase, they're also writing an offer that, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, will you also pay the commission, my commission, so the buyers don't have to pay. So that's the new rules and regulations. But the fraud that I want to talk about, and Alex, I don't know if I told you about this, but what's happening is when the buyer's agent now writes a commission, when the listing agent has a contract with the seller, let's say it's at 5%. Typically what used to happen is 2.5% went to the seller's agent and 2.5% went to the buyer's agent. Typically, and of course, commissions are negotiable all the time between the buyers and the buyer's agent, seller's agent, and everybody. What this particular agent did, and I found out about this agent that actually happened in Orange County, California, on a $1.5 million property. Another agent was involved in this, and he found out about it. Not in the transaction, but found out about it. What this listing agent did is when, let's say I call that agent, say, hey, are you offering any commission? Because, now the buyer's agent has to call the seller's agent and say, hey, are you offering any concessions? Meaning the seller. So again, going back, this listing agent had a listing for 5%, and the sellers assumed that out of the 5%, which is typical, 2.5 will go to the buyer's agent and 2.5 will go to the seller's agent. When this agent called the listing agent and asked, hey, what concession, now we call them concessions, are you offering to me as a buyer's agent? The listing agent said, no, I'm not offering any. You have to get it from the buyer. It so happened that these buyers had written 2 or 3 or 4 offers, lost out on all the homes. So they were desperate to buy this house because they really liked it. They were desperate. They were running out of time. So they wrote the offer and agreed to pay the buyer's agent commission 2%. Long story short, when the escrow closed, the listing agent kept the 5%, and there's an issue going on right now with the seller and the seller's agent. And then the buyer ended up paying 2% to the buyer's agent. That's real life fraud. What's your take on that, Alex? How bad is this?
Yeah, it's again the blessing of a great channel like this, educating and sharing with the consumers of what to look for. I think what we're seeing is exactly the same. As people say, hey, I don't have to pay a buyer's agent anymore, and you're seeing agents go, great, how about, yeah, you're right, how about 5%? And they go, great. And the consumer thinks they've just done a great thing. They've negotiated, they've saved some money, right? And in reality, they didn't talk about who or how that was going to be distributed. So it comes up in our
Exactly.
practice commonly where people will say, "Hey, I'm going to hire you, but I'm not paying full commissions anymore. I'm going to pay 5%." And I'm like, 5%, that's cool. You're good with that? And they said, yeah. And I said, you don't care how it's split? And they're like, nope, I don't care. And I'm like, you should care,
You should. Now you
because
should.
you
Yeah.
just found out that if you're not offering compensation to a buyer's agent, they may choose not to share your property with somebody.
Right.
So be very, very careful in your negotiations. Negotiations and commissions have always been negotiable. They were negotiable. They are negotiable. They will always be negotiable. And yet, ask all the terms, right?
Right.
All the terms. Our contract in Tennessee is 12 pages long, and by the
Right.
time it's finished, it's over 50 pages in the total document. And so you got to look at it. It's not just price. It's not
No.
just the commission. There's so much more.
Right.
So that's where I think is absolutely being fraudulent and being a scam, that people think. And then, as I said earlier, that's the moment where it's too late. You're in a contract, you're in a legal contract, there's money involved, and now you got a problem. It's not a thing where you can go, oh, never mind, I don't want to work with, my friend from my former place of employment or whatever. That's when you really run into issues, and that's where you really,
Right.
can't.
Right.
You're in a
Right.
contract already.
Yep,
So
yep. So the difference is, and the reason I went through the Department of Justice and the NAR settlement is, as in California, as in Tennessee, nationwide, the listing agreements have changed. For example, in California, because we go under the CAR rules, which is the California Association of Realtors,
right.
which is under the NAR, National Association of Realtors. When we did a listing agreement, there used to be a box. Okay, how much is your total commission? Let's say 6%.
Yes.
Okay. Then there was an option. It's not required, but there was an option. It says how much will go to the buyer's agent. And either I can fill it out and say 2% is going to go there, or 3%, or whatever, right? It was optional. So I always filled it out. But guess what? With the new DOJ regulations and new NAR rules, that box is gone, because technically the seller cannot offer a set commission ahead of time. They cannot have that in writing. All they can say is, yes, we will give them. Now we can't even call them commissions. We're calling them concessions. So what you might want to do is have some kind of agreement in writing. What we recommend, if you're a seller, is that have something in writing or an agreement that if I pay you 4% commission total, 5%, 6%, 7%, how much concession will go towards the buyer's agent, and if they're going to pay any closing costs or seller costs. So have all that agreement up front. So I don't know, what's your regulations in Tennessee? Do you have these kind of agreements now that is different?
No
from
question. In the old days, before it actually was part of the listing, right? It was like, it's a total compensation and how much you're offering to the buyer's agent.
Right.
We've actually spent an enormous amount of time on this, as most of this class action lawsuit was about, and the antitrust was about, pre-negotiating contracts and buyers not being able to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so for all of your followers and any viewers that see it, you want to just ask, hey, how are you handling it? We have a unique approach, and I would say most agents are pretty scared of it. They're scared they're not going to be paid. They're scared there's not an opportunity. They're scared they're going to do something wrong. It's new, right? And so I think we need to be really mindful of how are we handling this. We actually have a very unique approach. We think that we are saying, yes, our seller is expecting concessions, and then they'll say, great, how much? And I'm like, we don't know. It's going to depend on the term. It's a term in the contract. And people look at us really funny, and they don't look, they act funny, sound different on the phone. And they say, and I said, look, if it's $1 million house and you want $1 million in commission, and your people have $2 million cash, good on you. Congratulations. Get that $2 million, and don't make mistakes. Stay in touch with them, right? Because I'm going to stay in touch with them. They've got a lot of money. I want to get paid that way. But it really is having a real clear expectation of all the different scenarios, and it gets really confusing. This one might have some concessions. This one might not have concessions. This house might be on the market. It might not be on the market. So ultimately, this whole process over time is going to be a great asset of integrity, of financial clarity. But at the moment, we're all learning, the entire industry is learning new language and new standards. And
Right.
so that's how we're doing it, which has been really successful for us. We've been very good at
Right.
sharing that with people and saying, hey, this is how it is. It depends on your offer, right?
Right.
And
Right.
you can have different terms that are variable that are out there, but we've been taking a very, very different approach to be intentional. I think agents don't necessarily share this, but they want to find someone that they want to work with.
Right.
You want
Absolutely.
your agent to be someone that someone else wants to work with. You don't
Hmm.
want them to have a bad reputation. You want to see them as a professional and
Right.
collaborative and an agent that other agents want to work with. Because if you don't, that they don't want to be embarrassed by their client or this other agent.
Right.
I have that happening right now where I have a very aggressive client that I'm working with that wants to work with this other client, but his agent, the seller, but his agent is very passive and very slow. He takes a lot of time. And so it's actually causing some distrust from my buyer. I'm having to tell him, just be patient,
Hmm.
think 2 or 3 times your normal level of patience, because they're controlling this and this is how they work and this
Right.
is who they are. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a
Yeah.
lot. I kind of got off the rails there a little
Yeah,
bit,
that's
Mike,
okay.
but
Yeah. So I'm going to share some. I'm going to, and by the way, for my realtor friends who are watching, this is nothing against realtors, my fellow realtors, but the facts are facts. You as a buyer and a seller need to know that this is going on. It's
yeah.
going on a smaller scale. Regardless, once a victim, you're a victim. So we don't want, if you're watching, we don't want this to happen to you. So be aware of these. If you have friends and family, if they're buying a house, selling a house, let them know about this. Let them know to talk to interviews, have them use experienced agents. And that's why I'm putting this video out. I want to add another report before I talk about, let me see here. Let me go back to stop screen and share screen again.
You can do it. I believe in you.
There you
You got
go.
this.
Yep, there you go.
There it
So
is.
there you go. What I want to show you is the scams are rising, right? So this is something that's on the rise, and this is according to an NAR. Scams are rising. 1 in 4 face threats. That's 25%. That's a lot. The latest data shows real estate scams may be more common than you think. Nearly 1 in 4 consumers say they were targeted by fraud attempts during the real estate closing process, according to Certified D's report. More than 1 in 20 consumers became victims last year. The median amount they lost exceeded $70,000. That's a
Mm,
lot. Whether
mm,
that was buyers whose down payments were stolen or sellers who lost their net proceeds in fraud. Real estate is especially vulnerable to fraud because data is readily available about property listings via MLS, which is a multiple listing service, and county records. Transactions involve large sums of money, and up to 10 different parties could be involved in and sharing information about the closing, the reports warns. So, one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is that as realtors, once it goes to escrow, to title company, to recorder's office, we have no control. So on one end, yes, there are bad agents, and we're going to talk about more commission scams. Is realtors are doing this, but on the other hand, we have nothing to do with it. It's just part of the business. There's 10, 20 people involved in this transaction who see your paperwork, your files, your social security numbers, and these things happen. So you have to be very secure. What methods do you think, Alex, they can take to be more secure when they're emailing them, when they're photocopying, sending their date of birth and driver's license to the lender? I see stuff in the garbage, a driver's license and social security in my office. It
mm.
should be shredded, right?
Absolutely. That's something that we do in our process, that we ask people again, how secure do you want this to be? How
Mhm.
private? Being here and being one of the 4 major entertainment cities in the country between LA, New York, Miami, and Nashville, we get a lot of public figures. And so we
Mm.
ask, and people want some great privacy and deserve it, candidly. But we ask that in the very, very beginning. How private do you want this to be? How
Right.
secure does this need to be? And it starts in the very beginning, from showings and contracts. There's cameras everywhere. We've had a public figure recently that was in a large company, not necessarily a celebrity, but definitely a public figure. And if his comments were being recorded without knowing because of the house, we had to go through and tell people like, hey, we can't have that because it'll affect the company and the company's stock value. Then be aware that he's moving here in advance of the company moving here. And so you've got to just ask that question and decide that in the very beginning. We've had plenty of celebrities, many of them you can name and know, and I can talk about. Some of them I can't, but some of them are really funny. They're like, look, if it helps me, great. I don't care. But then others are, absolutely the most important thing is no one knows that, that I own this property in here, and we've helped have that. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to make sure that they're being secure and shredded, or what their standard is.
Right.
I've seen some closings have a shredder and a shredder lockbox right in the closing room.
We have it now. We have it So I want to. Something just came up when you mentioned something. I just remembered, and I want to bring it out.
Sure.
You mentioned that the celebrity was being recorded.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that triggered an incident that I heard about or read about. Actually, heard about. Somebody was talking about it. What's happening now? And I use ChatGPT all the time. I love AI. I'm not a techno geek, but I use it a lot as far as real estate goes.
Sure.
But one more caution that you may want to take, and it has actually happened, is that we talked about make sure you check your escrow and your title and you call. What's happened on this case is a client called this, I'm not sure if it was a title company or escrow company. The client called them, talked to them, but guess what?
Wasn't them.
The voice was recorded voice, and it sounded, It was an AI voice. So I don't know what app they use, but when I talk, I sound like Alex.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because now I can go on AI right now and record a video in Alex's voice. I can do it in 10 minutes. I have the app for it. It's voice transformation. And you can get a call and you think it's your mom, but it's not your mom. It's somebody else talking like your mom because it's pre-recorded and things like that. So even when you transferring, don't just I'm thinking out loud, not only verify the voice, but text them and re-verify, because now you got this sound fraud and voice fraud.
Yeah.
And this is true, and it's happening more in other fields, but it has also happened in real estate, which is technology is good, but it's also bad. There's a good and bad side.
No question.
Yeah. So okay, let's switch to the how the agents are taking advantage. I know we talked about the two ways where they took advantage of the new regulations, but I want to go back to the good old standard that has been happening for 15, 20 years. It does not happen a lot, but it has been happening. It's a slow process, but one of the things that's happening, and of course, very few people do that. Very few people get caught on it, but it is happening, and you need to be careful, is agents making extra money on transactions by getting referral fees. It's illegal now for me to refer an escrow company or a title company and get a kickback. Hey, pay me 10%. But what's happening, and I know there's an agent who made a lot of money every time he referred a contractor, because he worked with investors and fixer-uppers. Every time he referred a contractor, he got 10%, and he got caught and got taken to complaints or whatever, and his license got taken away. So the one way that consumers are being robbed by realtors is, one, when they refer you a escrow company, title company, a termite company, pest company, inspection company, staging company, they may be getting referrals, which is not legal according to RESPA, and they are making money. I don't know if you've seen that in Tennessee, but I've seen it firsthand in California.
Yeah.
Not many times, but I've seen it. And this has been happening for years, and not a lot of people get caught because all cash and hash money. But how do you prevent it, or how do you minimize that?
I think it's an interesting thing. I mean, people spend so much time trying to cheat the system, and if they spent that same time and energy taking better care of their clients, they wouldn't have a problem, doing all this. I've heard this, where there's been kickbacks both in our business and our vendors, but also as I shared from other business managers and agents and agencies want that as part of the deal too, and so I think it's just being very clear and very upfront in the beginning of asking and making sure that you're aware. I'm one that does not like the, hey, I'm going to refer three, and I explain that to clients, like, we want to have an amazing experience with you. And so we have great trusted advisors. If there's a problem, let us know. We'll go to the next one. But we want you to work with the best so you can have the best experience possible. Because our hope is before you close, you refer us to other people just like you that we can do business with in the year ahead. And when you're thinking like that and serving like that, then you don't typically have a problem on the scam on the back end. And so I think you have to ask that. You got to look at people's volume. You got to look at what's happening. I've had the exact same thing happen. I had an agent, a co-broker, call me and was very upset because he had a title company that was doing exactly that, paying him, an escrow company, paying him money back. And he quit arguing with me when I told him it was a federal RESPA violation to tell my buyer where they could or could not close. And one, I don't think he was aware, but two, his passion was in his paycheck. His passion was in his paycheck, not in the service and not in the client. And so be mindful of that. I think it's an appropriate thing in our education-based format today. Ask, are there any vendors throughout this that you're being compensated? With? How about you? What do you do?
Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest is, you made a good point, is, for example, I just closed an escrow and I've been using escrow company for years. He's a good friend of mine. He works for this escrow company. And when he found out that I'm selling my past clients, which they've done escrows before, this was a $1.7 million house I just closed. And the escrow fees was about $4,000 on each side, whatever the fees are, the buyer pays and the seller pays. Without me asking, because I've used this escrow company so many times, they gave my client 20% discount on the escrow fee, which is about $800. But if I was a bad agent, I could have called them and say, you know what, I'm giving you this escrow, give me 20% kickback. No, I didn't take that. So the escrows are willing to give kickbacks to the consumers. Why would they give it to the realtors? Why don't you give it to your buyer or seller? Get a discount if you can, whether it's title company, escrow company, staging company. Instead of getting a kickback to your realtor, why don't you get it? So I think the bottom line is, if you are talking to a realtor and you're working with a trusted, experienced, referred client or a realtor, make sure you sit down and talk to them. How do you work? What happens? Are you getting any kickbacks? How are your commissions? Be absolutely 100% sure. Ask as many questions as you can, because you're getting into a big transaction. A lot of hands are going to touch it. How safe are you? How secure are you? So of course you cannot control 100% of the time, but the more conversation you have up front, now including fraud and commissions and what the fees are going to be. Are there going to be any junk fees? Lenders charge, quote, lenders are good, but they charge a lot of junk fees. Be upfront with them. There's underwriting fees, processing fees, messenger fees, all kinds of fees for little things. Notary fees. Hey, I paid your escrow, your title, your second loan, there's a fee for that. I paid your first loan, there's a fee for that. So sit down with your lender, sit down with your escrow officer, sit down with your realtor, go through the fees, estimated fees. Just like the GFE, good faith estimate that lenders have to provide by law, go through them and understand them.
You need to be mindful. We just discovered recently a lot of the vendors that we are referring are selling our clients' information for additional revenue that we don't even see. So they may be mindful of being second or even third degree referred away. And we quit doing business with somebody. They were selling our clients that we were introducing and referring. They were selling their information to other vendors that they didn't have permission to do that. And they were definitely not disclosing it. So as you said very well, the last number I heard from the National Association of Realtors is there's 46 humans involved in every real estate transaction. And since those 46 are involved, any one of them could and does have access to your information. So what are they doing with it? So you better be mindful of some of those disclosures you sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about hungry agents and why they do that. You've seen that, I've seen that. Agents are hungry. It's very hard to get listings. It's not hard, it's challenging to get listings because most successful realtors are the ones that work with sellers getting listings, right? Of course, buyer's agent make money also. They work on commissions. But one of the things that has happened, and I've seen it, and I've lost listings to these scammy agents, is they send out a brochure or they drop off flyers or drop off a pumpkin and say, hey, I'll list your home for 1% or 1.5%. When they go do the listing, they do it at 1%. Now, when it comes to, and of course, that's why the seller has to be educated. They think, oh my God, I found an agent who's so nice. He gives me pumpkins, comes by at my house every month, drops off poinsettias during Christmas. And he says, I'm going to list your home with 1%. And you think, oh my God, instead of 6%, I'm a good negotiator. I got it 1%. You go into escrow. Now he says, oh, by the way, the buyer's agent is asking 3%. You just got gypped with 3%. How do you handle those agents? And they're out there. I'm sure you've seen them.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, that is the thing that we're here promoting is ask those kinds of questions. What if, go through it, it's painful to go through all the different scenarios. What this whole new process since August flips this around, that really the buyer's agents and the buyers should be having that conversation initially. And we're having it again with sellers of saying, hey, there might be a represented buyer. They might be unrepresented. And you may need to explain what that looks like.
I'm just going to add a little music just for a few minutes, just to brighten up. So carry on.
Sure, no problem. So I think it's really interesting that you need to ask all the different scenarios. What does it look like if a buyer shows up unrepresented? One of the things that we've seen most commonly in the market since the new rules is we're seeing a lot more people out at open houses, and we're seeing a lot more people, what's old is new again. And it's been really interesting seeing the volume of people that are out there. We had a $3 million house close, and the people walked in and fell in love with it, and they just gotten through playing pickleball, and they were sweaty. They weren't dressed up, and they were like, oh my God, we love it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
And no agent. And so we had a conversation there. So I think the key to protect yourself is ask all the questions.
Yep. Ask questions and read stuff. Watch this podcast, or what do you call this? This is not a podcast. What do you call this? Live stream?
Yeah.
Okay. It is a live stream. Okay. So the other one I want to talk about, do you have any that you've come across that you want to mention to our buyers and sellers, a screen that you've come across?
I think the biggest scam is like just not realizing what the intent is. People focus on the amount and don't focus on the second and third things, right? If it's price or if it's commission, always focus on the terms. And I think that's our best advice here is people say, oh, I got an agent and I got him down to, I was really proud that they got him down to 1.5%, like you said. But then what are they doing? Probably nothing. And do they really care about you? A real life scenario. I had a client hire a friend's brother who he assumed was taking great care of him. He'd not bought and sold much real estate in his life. He was in his 70s. And he thought he was hiring a friend. He thought he was hiring someone who cared. And in less than 5 weeks, the property that they hired him to sell, he made a reduction of over $700,000 and sold it, and didn't offer full compensation to the buyer broker as well. And he took an extra. And so at that point, he went under contract. He thought he was being taken care of. He took the contract. They didn't work hard on the property. They just lowered the price. They lost hundreds of thousands. And then even percentages, they got paid a premium for lower level service. And so that happens every day. And you want to find, you said something really interesting that spurred something in my mind. Why are agents doing all this? The key is looking for someone who's doing it in a regular way, that's closing business every single month, that's educating consumers through great channels like yours, and is actually out there publicly making the world a better place. Those are the people you want to get into business with.
Exactly.
You want to take advantage? There's plenty of people that'll do that.
Yep, I know. Yeah. Here's one that I not thought about, but that's also very common. I think this fraud, quote, I'm calling it fraud, I'm calling it scam.
Scam, yeah.
And just a disclosure again, buyer, seller, investors, and if you're a realtor watching, I know a lot of realtors watch my YouTube channel as well. There's not a lot of these out there that scam, but they're out there. 1%, 2%, 3%. If I find out that one of my sellers, a seller or a buyer is affected by fraud, that's not good. 4 or 5 million homes sell a year on average. If one was taken as a fraud or scam, not good at all.
Yeah.
Not good. So let me talk about something else, and I'm sure you come across this. First of all, the agents that do this are agents who are not top producers, who are not negotiators, are not honest. They sell on average 2 or 3 or 4 property at most per year. Good agents sell 10, 15, 20 properties per year. So here's another scam. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I'm that scammer. Hey, Mike Patel, the scammer. Okay. And I'm desperate, right? And I have a listing. I have a listing at 4%, right? Because I'm cheap. So I took it at 4%. I'm not confident that I can get you the top price. I can get you the top commission, whatever. Took it at 4%. Did an open house. 3 buyers walk in. Alex brings me an offer on Monday. Cindy brings me an offer on Monday. But one of the open house guys wants to write an offer. So I write up that offer. I have 3 offers. Alex's offer is full price, $400,000. Cindy's offer is $400,000 full price. Mike's offer is also $400,000 full price. But guess what Mike does? He wants this deal. And maybe there was $5,000 or $6,000 difference here and there. The terms and conditions on here and there. He convinces the seller that, hey, this is the best offer. I know, Mr. Seller, it's my offer, but I've talked to these guys. I met Alex at open house. I met his buyers personally. Cindy came at the open house, but guess what? Blah, blah, blah. Alex, no good. Cindy, no good. I convinced the seller to take my offer, even though it's not a best price offer, best terms and condition. Because remember, an offer is not just the price.
Yeah.
It's terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
The strength of the buyer, the strength of this offer. And I convinced the seller to take my offer. Hey, Mr. Seller, you trusted me to accept me as a listing agent. I can take care of the buyer and save you. Maybe I'll give you $1,000 discount. But even by giving a discount, he's making double the commission. And that's fraud right there. So instead of taking Alex's good offer, I'm taking a risky offer. So I make the commission. And then I'm telling the seller, you know what? I'll pay for your home warranty. I'm making 2% on a $400,000, which is $8,000. And I'm giving a little, what do you call, a tidbit to the seller. You know what? I'll pay for a home warranty. Have you seen that happen? I'm sure you have. Let's chat about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, right? They don't realize, I think you need to be just very intentional about who you're in business with and what their value proposition is, right? There's plenty of agents that are discount agents, right? There's different ways of doing business. That's often overlooked is, they don't realize, and they'll just say, yep, I'll do it. 5%, great. Not realizing that the agent's taking all 5. That's the one that I see most commonly is they think they've negotiated, but they don't think about what that is. And then, as you said, they get them under agreement and then it's too late. Like, oh, well, the buyer's agent asked for 3% also. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. There's a team of people here, right? There's a team, there's an escrow officer and a loan officer and this. You want to make sure that, as I said, that you got the good team that's there. And if somebody stays silent on someone, it doesn't go, man, Mike is the best to work with. If they stay silent, there may be a reason for that, right? Don't assume that a silence is acceptance, right? You might need to lean in a little more.
Yeah. You mentioned about bad agents or, so just statistically, they know. First of all, an average agent sells 3 to 4 homes per year, according to NAR, which is not a lot. And there are bad agents out there. The problem is these bad agents, they come and go. I don't know about Tennessee, but in California, the attrition rate is very high. 90% of the agents are out of business in 5 years. And now 60 to 70% of the realtors who join real estate are gone within a year. Yeah. So there's a lot of turnover. And these people who come in and do 1 or 2 or 3 deals, fraudulently or commission scamming or whatever, they're gone next year. But what happened is it cost me money because I was talking to Alex. He was going to sell his house, but I was asking for 5% because I can get him 30,000 more. This idiot agent comes in at 1%, scams him, and he's gone. So I lost Alex's business, right? So these come and go. These are bad agents. But here's another one I want to talk about. I mentioned earlier where the agents advertise, I'll list your home for 1%, and they list it, and then, oh, by the way, you have to pay 2.5%, 3% to the buyer's agent, and sellers has to agree or not agree. Here's another thing that happens, and I'm sure you've seen these packages because I certainly have seen in my career, is that agents will say again, I'll list your home at 1%, 2%, blah, 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 right? And I just listed a house, for example, I just sold a house for 1.7. It was listed for that. And I paid for the staging. I paid for the marketing. I paid for photography, the virtual, the drone, the Matterport, everything. I paid, and I told him up front. The seller paid me 5% commission. I was going to give X amount to the buyer's agent, which was in writing. And it was in writing that I was going to pay for the staging, marketing, and all that. What some agents do is they take the listing at 1%, right? And then when it comes to staging or marketing, they charge the sellers that, which they were not clarified up front. Oh, I thought you were going to do the staging or you were going to do the photography. Of course, all this is negotiable as long as you let them know up front. So now I got the listing, you're locked in at 6 months. What are you going to do? Cancel? No, you want the staging, you pay for it. And they again, it's boils down to misleading on purpose.
And it's so easy to happen too. It's so easy to get in a hurry. So take your time, be thorough, ask all these questions, look at some of these different, scams that we've brought up today, because, and the other thing is occasionally, look, I mean, I'm open to this. Call someone that knows these scams that doesn't have a chance of ever getting the business. That's where you're going to get a really honest answer. So if we get someone, I'm not licensed in Idaho. If you're going to sell in Coeur d'Alene, call me, right? Pick up the phone, call Mike and say, hey, Mike's not licensed in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. He can't sell there. Right? Are you not? Are you licensed there?
Nope.
No. So he's not. So perfect.
Nope.
Neither one of us can do business there. And yet we're both super professional and are the people that you can ask to go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, and can help you purify and clarify the process. I think the key is try not to get in a silo, one-on-one with one person. That leaves lots of room for confusion and lots of room for a misinterpretation. Get as many people in the room as you can that have real experience, because even those agents with very, very little experience, someone is guiding them. So you need to know who that is, because they don't know how to do it. Or you need to know who in the process is telling them how to guide you through this experience. If it's an agent that doesn't have a lot of experience, then a loan officer or an escrow officer or a broker or a mentor, you need to know those people, and to know how they're going to help you get through these problems and these things that come up, and to avoid the bigger problems that can go with you longer than they may be in business.
Right. It happens. It's happening. And I think the consumers, and not just in real estate, anything you go shopping and there's fraudulent products. You go buy a Gucci bag, it's $2,000, but it's a fake, and it's worth $20 and you're paying $2,000. It happens all the time. Suits and clothes. You think you're buying a nice Nordstrom shirt, but it's a fake. So consumers beware. Consumers beware more now that we have ChatGPT and AI, and we are so busy that, hey, I'll take that. Take your time. My wife tells me, calm down, breathe. And I'm learning how to do that because there are too many things going on, especially with our challenging market. Yeah. So I think when it comes to any kind of contract, especially real estate, because we're talking about real estate, calm down, breathe. If you're talking to a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, read their body language, look in their eyes, and use gut feeling. A lot of the things we do, you can check all the credentials you want. They could be fake.
Yep.
End of the day, it's your gut feeling.
Yep.
If you sense something, if you're not comfortable, back off, come back and do it. And I think a lot of times they talk, sellers, a lot of realtors are salespeople. They're salesy. There's a salesperson and there's a salesy salesperson. So if you think that he's pushing you, shoving you, guiding you, back off. You read the body language, read the signs. And of course, I'm no psychologist, but that's one way to predict or knock them out. I don't know any other way. I don't know,
That's
Alex.
interesting.
How do you knock them out? How do you know Mike's a sneaky guy? How can you tell? I come in a nice suit. I bring you a pumpkin, or
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. I bring you a pie. You're so nice, Mike. I'll
You're
sign right
so
here.
you're so right. That's great advice, to trust your gut, right?
Mhm.
The old, I knew better, I could feel it. You gotta empower that little voice inside our head. And we run into that often, especially being a luxury expert here in Middle Tennessee. We'll have people that want to see things quite quickly, and with very little, proof of funds. And so we've started engaging and making it really collaborative and really responsive of, hey, how are you handling proof of funds? How private do you
Right.
need this to be? We start asking those questions. We ask, hey, where are we in your order of showings? If you're going to see 6 houses, if they're going to be
Right.
the first house, they're going to be on time. If we're the 5th house, no way. If they're seeing houses that are 10,000 feet, there's no way they're going to be on time to that 5th showing. So
Yep.
we work to really bring out conversations, to really and that when you go deeper in the conversation, again, table service versus drive-through. When you're table
Yeah.
service, you slow down and you're like, hey, what can I get you to drink? What do we have any special allergies that we need to be concerned about? Instead of combo number 1, boom, drive through, right? Here's my Apple Pay, boom, gone. Like, just throw it at the car as I don't stop at the second window.
Right.
And so that's it. Slow down a minute. If
Mhm.
it's going to do business, no one has made a really sustainable practice on speed. Someone
Yeah.
will always compete on speed, and someone will always compete on price. And those are very short-lived practices. And so we've got to do a good job showing our value, but also working quickly. Just last week, I had a billionaire with a B, billionaire, who owned a professional sports team that everyone has heard of, wanted to see one of our properties, and his agent couldn't clarify who it was and why they were, and didn't have a letter, all this other stuff. And in my gut, I thought it was probably right. I thought it was probably okay, but I kept asking the bare minimum, and I finally got enough information that was searchable, that was real, and I was like, fine, we'll just show it.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, there's good sellers out there, good buyers out there, good agents out there, but we're talking about that little. I want to name them. I want to, what I'm naming them, right? It
Yeah.
gives us a bad rap. But anyway,
Yeah.
long story short, the bottom line is fraud does go on. Use your gut feeling. Please comment. I know this is a recording. We want to hear what you've heard about commission scam, fraud
sure.
scam. The real reason is we can let others know, and others viewers will be watching this, so let them know. So on that, we're going to end this live stream. Alex, you have any last minute comment? Otherwise, we'll call it a day.
No, it's a pleasure. I think you're doing a great thing for buyers and sellers and sharing this, and your channels are excellent. They should absolutely subscribe and continue to engage there.
Thank you. Thank you. Make a comment. And like I said, if you have any questions, mid states, Nashville there, contact Alex. His contact information, phone number, company name will be in the description. Look it up. Any other questions, feel free to call me. Just because you call us, we're going to not pressure you to buy or sell. We're here to answer questions. So feel free to contact us. And on that note, if you are looking for an agent someplace else other than Tennessee or Anaheim Hills or Orange County, we belong to a network of agents. We can refer you a good agents who you can rely on. So hit us up. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Alex.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah.